I have such a juicy episode for you today, and it is with my girl, Kristel David. She is a life and relationship coach dedicated to helping professional athletes' wives have healthy and thriving relationships with themselves and their partners. She herself is the wife to a retired NFL vet and Super Bowl champion, Jason David, and she is a mama to 5 beautiful girls. She likes to call herself a former super busy, never productive wife, living off her hubby, to now living her best life, contributing over 6 figures to her household in purpose, present, and on a mission to help women create their dream life. This episode is probably the rawest, realest girl talk episode I have had to date. I mean, Kristel went there. We both did. I'm so excited for you to listen to this. And I think many of you ladies listening are going to be nodding your head. You're going to be feeling it. And I just really honor Kristel for everything that she shares in this episode. She really shared what she's gone through personally in her 16-year relationship with Jason and all the ways that she's grown from it, what she's learned, and what she now coaches her clients on. So I'm just super excited to get into it. I'm not even going to blab on anymore. We're just going to dive right into it. Kristel, you are back for the second time. I'm so excited about this episode with you. I've got to say, I've been it's just all day, super eager and excited for this conversation we're about to have because it's going to be really juicy. And I know my girl Kristel lays down the real stuff. Like, she really has no BS in her coaching, no BS in what she does. Like, I know this is going to be a really raw conversation. So thank you so much, Kristel, for coming on the show today. I'm super excited.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley, for having me, and all the listeners for tuning in and spending your time with us. I'm just honored to be here.
And what I like to do at the beginning of this episode, I do this for all of the women who I've chosen to be a part of this series, Female on Fire, is I just want to take a moment and acknowledge you, Kristel, and why I chose you as one of the 11 females on fire for this series.
Aww, cool.
Number one, you're a boss babe, and I love your niche. I'm actually going to take out my phone right now, and I want to read you guys her Instagram bio because it's that good. Okay, this is her niche. She helps pro athlete wifeys stop worrying if their man is faithful and secure the confidence and trust she desires. I freaking love it. I love it so much. I love what you're doing. I love who you're serving. I love the riches are in the niches. We all know that. So I love that. And secondly, you're a mom of 5 girls. And by the way, they're freaking adorable. I was watching this video. Kristel just released her own podcast. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So her playbook, right, is what it's called.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you were like, I saw this video last night, and you were showing. I think she's your oldest daughter.
Yeah. She was roasting me.
Yeah, she was like totally roasting her. She plays back this the intro to her podcast in the car, and she's just like, "Mom, that's not your voice." Like, da, da, da. It was hilarious. Like, I honestly watched it probably 3 times. I was dying. I'm like, I love, and she has that little attitude, and but you can tell she deep down she cares and she doesn't want to hurt your feelings, but she's totally in her truth. It was the cutest thing. Oh my gosh,
that was so good. That was I some people were like, dang, they're all trying to make me feel better. I'm like, my feelings are not hurt. You can you can she was speaking the truth. I even noticed, I was like, dang, I have a podcast voice. Like, this is not how I sound in real life.
I'm still laughing over it. It's hilarious. So yeah, you guys, if you're listening to this, it's still going to be up on our page. You could probably find it. Maybe we'll link it in the show notes just so you guys can see what I'm really talking about. I'll have my team link that in the show notes. Okay. And thirdly, you have an amazing king by your side, Jason. I know you guys have been through it. I'm excited to learn more about, what you two have gone through specifically. And it's just so cool. I love seeing the videos that you post together, how he pranks you, and it's just so cool. I love your guys' relationship, and I'm super happy for you and what you've created with him and your family. And also, you're a conscious woman. You do the work. I know you and I have both done a similar training. It's pretty much the same training, right? Mm-hmm. So You and I have both done that deep, uncomfortable work. And I know that's the work you're committed to, and it radiates from your being. And so I love that about you. And the final thing I really want to say is I love this like sexy, classy, spicy, like feminine photos you've been posting on your Instagram. I think I don't know, whatever you're doing, girl, it's working. And you've been inspiring me. I'm like, I get to go do a photo shoot now. Like I'm officially inspired for my next photo shoot.
Oh my gosh. Like, I know you guys can't see me, but I'm literally like blushing and oozing because this is like the stamp of approval here. I mean, I like just love and adore your whole world since I got connected with you. And I don't get to follow tons of people on social. I'm not on enough to like just indulge in so many pages, but yours is definitely one that it's like, I eat it up. I love it up. I'm just waiting to get on the list to be on one of these trips with them. Like, I just love, you guys are just so fun and yeah, beautiful people. And again, like you said, conscious, but still have that flavor. Like my husband posted a video today, like you got to have the sauce. Like, so it's like you have the sauce, but you're like, the real sauce is being conscious. Right. So
yeah. So true. Like having just that little edge, keeping things spicy. Yes, absolutely. I love that about you. You totally have that. And I think that's why we vibe so well. We both have that. Like we're conscious and like we still, we keep it real. We have fun and we have that little spice to us. So
yeah.
Okay. So Kristel, I'm really excited to dive into the topics that we're going to be going in on today. It's something that I actually have not. I was thinking, I'm like, have I jammed out about this with anyone on my podcast? And I don't think I have, which is really exciting because it's new content and something the listeners haven't heard before. And I think you're just the perfect person to talk with about this because this is what you support women through. Mm-hmm. And I polled my audience on Instagram asking, what you guys want to focus in on. And the topics that came up were, number one, how to know if he's the one or it's time to leave. Mm-hmm. And also how to overcome insecurity, jealousy, distrust, and like what to do when trust is broken. So before we dive into that juicy stuff, because I don't know about you guys, I'm super excited. I think every woman gets to hear this episode. And I know literally Kristel is going to drop some amazing value for you and she's going to have such a powerful perspective for you. Before we dive into that though, I really want to know how you came to the work that you're doing today, Kristel, because I personally don't know the story of like, and I have a feeling it's a pain to power story. I have a feeling it's a pain to purpose. So I would really love for you to share that with me and the listeners.
Yeah. Well, so again, just thank you so much for having this space for us to have this conversation because it is one that gets to change lots of lives. And I'm just honored to be one of the vessels of this work. And like I have the emotion in me because it's just like I know we're going there today, and it's like this topic is deep. It's or at least for me, it's one that I've shed lots of tears and probably even blood. Like just there it's a lot. So to put the story in a nutshell, I guess, if you will, my husband and I have been together for 16 years, and I don't remember being a jealous person before being with him. I actually had a long-term, I'd say like 4-year relationship with a boyfriend prior to my husband. And he was more of like the controlling, possessive, jealous type, and I wasn't. So it's interesting that I ended up being that. And through a lot of the healing work I've done, I actually had some readings in my energy work that I inherited some of that like trauma from being the one on the receiving end of the jealousy and control, that I like reciprocated that. So anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But basically over the 16 years, I would say the last 2.5, 3 years have been my recovery stage, if you will. And everything prior to that was pure toxic hell. I mean, I honestly, to this day, don't know how. I'm so grateful that my husband is still with me. And, we have the songs like WAP and all these like ridiculousness things, but that are popular. And after having 5 kids, I question the strength of my muscles down there and how good my, what is. But I'm like, it must have been really good because I don't know what else kept it there.
I love you.
Like, I don't think it's good anymore because it's like been run through. There's babies that have come through it and everything, but I'm like, I don't know what else.
I told you guys that Kristel would keep it real. This is why I love you. Yes.
I know.
Real talk, straight up.
So but I'm not joking. I literally look back and I'm like, I don't know what kept in there. That, or the real reason that I think is it's cheaper to keep her. I think that's a real thing. So, 3, 4, 5 kids deep. It's like, I honestly think my husband was just like, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stick around here. But so to just summarize the breaking point, the hell was me being very jealous. I was constantly in his phone. I had every password. Before social media was a thing. I read through his phone bills. So I would like write down every number and then I'd call him with the blocked number, *6, whatever, *82 or whatever. And call if it was a female's voice, then I'd do more research on it and check the area code. Was it in a city where he played football that weekend? Like, I was psycho. Then when it transferred into the Sidekick, I had his dashboard and I'd log in, I'd read his text messages, his emails, his instant messenger, and then it graduated to social media and I had all his passwords. I'm like, why are you so dumb that I can like guess your passwords? But I did. I had all his stuff. So the toxicity came from a number of things now that I've done the work, and I know that it came from my childhood, and I know you talk a lot about that. So it came from my cycles. I don't know how much we want to go into that, but I know it was rooted in that. But from where I was consciously creating the toxicity, it was because I was constantly in his phone. And when you go looking for dirt, you're going to find it. So if you can imagine, for 13 years going through this man's phone, invading his privacy, I always had something that I was upset about. And what it did was it sent our marriage into just, he was miserable. He was like dead. I mean, like, he was just not engaged in the relationship. He was there, but he was just like done over me. And there was 3 different breaking points. So to just summarize them, one of them was I was on borderline autoimmune disease because I had so much stress happening to my body on a normal basis. The doctor told me that even your brain doesn't know the difference with trauma. So even though he wasn't actually cheating, but I was looking for it and I was like reading it, I was experiencing trauma every single day.
And you were probably imagining scenarios,
it,
fantasizing, which felt real.
Yeah. Like, I have a whole book idea on the stories that I made up. I made up so many stories. So that trauma with my health was like failing. The other breaking point was I went to Vegas with my brother for a conference. There was no ill intent there. I didn't even go with him. I went with girlfriends for a leader, like a mindset conference. But my brother happened to be in town that weekend, and he was at a club in the same hotel that we were staying in. So we went downstairs, had 4 too many drinks, and was like plastered. So I like blocked my husband on my Instagram because I didn't want to give him, this is where I was crazy. He was out of town for Combine, which is a football thing. I didn't want to give him ammo to be like, oh, she's out in Vegas with NFL players, I'm going to go do what I'm going to do. So to protect him having a pass to go do something I didn't want him to do, I blocked him on Instagram. Well, 3 weeks later, we were out at a club with my brother for his birthday, and one of the guys comes up to us and was like, oh, I'm such and such, and my husband's like, nice to meet you. And then I'm like, oh, I'm Kristel. He's like, I turned up with you in Vegas. And I was like, I like just melted. I felt like all the blood like run out of my body. And my husband literally grabbed my hand and was like, it's time to go. And we got in the car. He took my ring and he's like, this is why all these years you've been worried about me, because you're a liar. I don't know. So imagine the story that he was able to make up. He didn't even know I went out in Vegas. He didn't never heard that story, and he knows everything. So he made up a story that I hid it, that I lied, that I got drunk, probably slept with one of my brother's teammates and cheated, and I'm this cheater, and that's why I've been accusing him. And then the third one was a dream. So those 3 things happened in the scale of probably 6 months, and they were all my breaking points that shook me like something has to change. And everything pointed to that something is me. And that sent me into doing self-development work. I dove headfirst into leadership and energy work and just all the things, and then also start pouring into my business. And that was really where it started. So I try to make it like a nutshell, but that's kind of when I realized we needed help. Yeah.
Wow. And how long did that go on for?
Which part?
Like the unhealthy toxicity, the toxic.
Yeah, I mean that it was our whole relationship. I mean,
Wow.
like it was our whole relationship. I can't even remember the first time I ever went through his stuff and why, but it was like I was addicted to it. And once I
Mm.
actually did have to go, like I consider myself to be in remission, like the same way a drug addict or an alcoholic would like count their sobriety years. I'm counting my sobriety of like going through his stuff because I was that addicted to it that I had to learn I was actually addicted to the rush of like
Yep.
hiding under the bed while he's sleeping. And I mean, I can hear it now. Like I would hear my heart beating because that's how much I'd be like, oh my God, is he going to wake up? And it was
Mm.
just, it was a mess. I mean, I've done some sick things like to get information. And, the weird thing is that I would always find enough to get mad, but not enough to leave. And that's what my college best friend, she would always tell me, even in college, she'd be like, you're basically just telling him he can do whatever he wants because you're going to get mad, but you're not going to go anywhere. And she was right. I never went anywhere. So
Interesting. Well, first off, thank you so much for vulnerably sharing all of that. I'm sure a lot of ladies listening are nodding their heads and can relate to plenty of portions of what you just shared.
yeah.
I know I can. I mean, I feel like at one point or another, every woman who's been in a relationship has had the temptation and, you know, given into the temptation of looking at their stuff, like whether it's, you know, their DMs or their text messages. And we always feel really shitty afterwards, you know, because we know that that's not, and it's so true. When you go looking for something, you always find it.
Yeah.
You always find it. So
yeah.
Had you ever been in a position where he actually broke trust, like he actually did something, or was it always just more like, you know, trivial things that never transpired and it was just like your fear and your stories?
No, yeah, it was both, which is what created such a vicious cycle because it was like one of the books that broke me out of my cycle was and I always forget it when I want to share it. It's like the overt um I'll just passive aggressive narcissist or something. But in that book, I remember I was reading it one night and I just burst into tears, like like hysterically crying. And I went into the car in the garage so I didn't wake anyone up. And I called my mom and I'm like, I'm a narcissist. And like, because what this book was talking about was how you find your one victim. And so to the rest of the world, you're like the sweetest person to everyone else. But that one victim, it's like you control them and you suck the life out of them. And that was really what I was doing to my husband. But the reason why I was doing that was because I was going through his stuff, invading his privacy and finding things. So I felt justified. Well, you keep doing stuff, so I need to keep looking and I need to control your every move. And so I was sucking the life out of him. But then when I would find things, it would like also ding my trust. So even when I would say, okay, I'm not going to go through your stuff anymore, and I would kind of mean it, I couldn't control myself I mean, we always can, but like I couldn't control myself to not go looking again because the root problem was never addressed. Like because I would find things, but then he would be able to gaslight it over and say, well, you went through my stuff, you shouldn't have been doing that. Then I would go into apology of like, yeah, you're right, I was the wrong one. And he had this way with like making it me be the one who felt wrong, and then I would have to let go of what I saw. And so the one that like I would find things like, I hate to paint my husband out as this monster, so I never found like blatant things of him like cheating or anything like that, except for one time we had just gotten married. We were only married for maybe a month, and we actually were on platinum weddings. And I'll never forget because our episode was airing that day, and earlier that it was airing like that week that I found this, but his computer was open and I went through his email because it was wide open, and I saw a conversation back and forth with a girl that he blatantly, I know, was in the hotel room with her. He thanked her for wearing panties, like a certain color panties. And she was like, well, I'm never going to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I'll see you when you're in LA. To me, that's cheating. I don't care if I don't have proof that he penetrated this girl, that's cheating, right? So that tore me up. I mean, I didn't watch our episode that day. I remember I lied because we had like a whole watch party. I told everyone I got stuck in traffic and I was at like a bar somewhere. getting drunk like by myself. I was like, I'm not doing this. And I would say the next 2 years after that, the first 2 years of our marriage was turmoil. I was literally drinking myself to sleep every day. I'd have good days, I'd have bad days. I didn't want him to touch me because I would just picture him sleeping with some girl.
Did you ever talk with him about it?
Yeah. So his explanation was that we were and here's the thing. Whenever I tell this story, I'm like, you are such an idiot that you believe that. But then there's a part of me in my gut, and we may get to this today in the conversation, I don't know, but there's a part of me in my gut that believes him. So I will never know the truth. I always say there's 3 sides, his side, your side, and the truth. I'll never know the truth. But here's what he said. He said that he was so married up. Like he felt like newlywed, that this girl was like the team hoe, basically. She was the girl that everyone on the team knew because she had all the local friends that were single. So when guys would have their friends come in town, they would hit this girl up, and she had all the single girls to come. He's like, I made mistakes. Like I'd go out and these girls would be there. Like I talked to her. She was like, cool. I knew her, but I didn't sleep with her. And so he said when he went back, he had to go back because he got illegally cut from the team. And so he went back to that state for a settlement. And when he went there, that he met up with her. And so he said that she came and hung out. She was doing homework. She was in nursing school or something. She was doing homework. He was watching TV. They were just hanging out. He knew it wasn't appropriate, but he didn't do anything wrong, so he didn't think anything of it. Now, being that I have my own secrets, and I've done things where, like, I went to Atlanta once and we ended up at some guy's bachelor party up like at the top penthouse, and we were drinking all their free alcohol and eating all their wings and watching their strippers. And I went home innocently, nothing happened, but I didn't tell my husband that, right? Because I know he probably doesn't want to know that I went and partied with a bunch of bachelors. So knowing things like that, there's a part of me that's like, he probably just crossed the line, but maybe he actually didn't sleep with her. I don't know. And he says that the reason why he thanked her for the panties was because she was bending over and her panties came out, and he like made a comment, and so he thanked her. This is where I'm like, you're an idiot. That's a lie. Whatever. But here's how I'm gonna like wrap that up, because I'll never know. That was over 10 years ago. I look at it like, even if he did make that mistake, where we're at today, I would still choose him. You know what I mean? Like I would still choose him. And so when I think of being a 22-year-old NFL player, stepping into money, influence, status, and fame, I'm not giving them a pass, but I am giving him a pass that it's like, what the heck did I expect of a 22-year-old? And we always tell each other, we robbed each other of our prime years. And that's the trade-off that we pay. That's the price we paid to have the marriage that we have today. So we could sit in regret of like, you robbed me in my 20s. Well, you robbed me in my 20s. Or we could just be like, it worked and we made it, and we're glad we made it to the other side of that hell pit. But so it was a lot of that. It was a lot of finding. I mean, I found other things where he'd go, whatever city he was playing in, there was that area code, and he was communicating. And I remember I pretended to be, hey, what are you doing? And like acted like I was the girl's sister. What did you do tonight? And she's like, oh, I had dinner. And I was like, huh?
Wow. Okay. So sorry. Hold on. What is that voice? Is that how like the women
that's this is when you're crazy, you will do whatever you need to do.
Hilarious.
So the voice was me pretending to be sick. And so she was like, who is this? And I was like, it's your sister. Just praying that this girl had a sister. And she did. And she was like, what's wrong with your voice? I'm like, I'm sick. But what did you do tonight? I have so many stories. It's like really, really bad.
I'm dead. It's so funny.
But anyways, I found so many things like that where it was like, am I going to leave him for having dinner with a girl? I have no proof that he slept with her. And, you know, my husband, I have to say, out of the levels of guys I've seen, especially in the league, I got a good one. I don't know if he's perfect, but I got a good one. So it's like, you know, I just had to take the trade-off, and here's what saved it too. Like I had to create a blank canvas. So a lot of people will ask me, so how do you recover from finding things like that?
That's what I was going to ask you.
And that's what is where the turmoil didn't end, because that story I just told you guys happened when we got married. So we've been married for almost 11 years now. So for 10 years, I mean, for however many years from that moment, I never let it go. If I would see panties, I would be triggered. Oh, like if I would see, I got rid of everything pink. Like I had a bunch of things that said pink from Victoria's Secret, threw everything away, because every time I'd open my panty drawer, I would be sent right back to the trigger. I would spiral, then I'd have an attitude. So we lived in this vicious cycle of anything could send me off the rocker. And so the breaking point, when I told you guys the Vegas story, that was only 3 years ago. So we had lived like 7, 8 years of our marriage up to that point, to where he was so done with having to relive his mistake from 10 years ago that he
exhausted.
was over me. He was over me. So the tables turned, and it was like, he finally was like, I'm a good guy. And if you can't see it, then why are you still here? Why are you still in this relationship? And he was right. What if I'm going to beat him to death?
Because we have the ability as women to bring out the worst in our men, or the best. We do. We're that effing powerful. We really are. And there's something I want to say, because I actually had a client who trust was violated. Okay. And there was some feels of betrayal. Okay. There wasn't actually physical cheating that happened, but it was clearly betrayal. Mm-hmm. And she was deciding whether to stay or go, which I want to talk with you about in a second. She decided, after all things considered, when she sat with herself and took time away, that she wanted to stay. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I said, okay, if that's your decision, if you have it in your gut that he's worth a second chance and you want to, and you're going to give it a go, you have got to forgive and let that go and be 100% in, because you are only going to do two things. If you don't let it go, and if you don't heal that and let it go, like literally forgive, heal, let it go, you're going to do two things. You're going to make yourself miserable.
Yes.
You're going to make yourself miserable, because the forgiveness is your freedom, not his freedom. It's not excusing him. It's literally your freedom. So you're going to feel like a prisoner and miserable in the relationship. And number two, you're going to make him miserable. Yes. And then you're going to have a freaking relationship that's crap. And then that's not what you want. So I told her, I said, if you're choosing in, choose in all the way. It's not going to work if you hold this against him. I said, can you do that? Do you have it in you? Because that's the only way you can move forward, really, and in a healthy way. And so I'm curious to you, I'm sure you have something to add on to that, but like what a lot of women want to know is when to stay, when to go. You know, and I'll let you speak into that. And I'm sure you have something to add to what I just shared as well.
Well, to add to what you said and move it into what you're asking, let's take the cheating or betrayal or whatever off the table. Every relationship has to do this act of choosing every day of the relationship. It doesn't matter if cheating isn't the thing. If you're in relationship with another human, there's going to be flaws, there's going to be mistakes, and there's going to be things that you're going to have to let go of. And one thing I learned from leadership actually was this concept of a decision is based on the past and a choice is based on the future. And so when you're saying choose all in, that's exactly what it requires, is to choose in or choose out. You can't decide, well, I'm going to decide to stay based on what we have, because so many women will decide to stay because they have kids, because they invested 15 years, because I don't know if there's anything better on the other side. If you're deciding to stay, you're settling. But if you're going to choose in, you have to choose the future, the vision. Can I be with this person? Is this person my person no matter what? And one of the pieces of advice that kept me in my marriage was my uncle. When I got married, we asked all the married couples their one piece of advice. And I'll never forget, my grandmother said, just roll over and give it to him. That was her advice. And I was like, okay. And I love
paradigm.
I loved it because I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, but there's some truth in it, and
Thanks,
you're
Grams.
old. And thank you. I love you. And then my uncle said, and I quote this all the time to this day, he said, we all have shit and it all stinks. So you just got to find the person who has shit that you're willing to put up with. And so that's kind of where, when I looked at my relationship, it was like, okay, I could leave so I'm going to pin that for a moment because I'll just finish that and then I'll say that. So I realized that if I'm going to leave my husband and because of the things that I've seen, I'm going to go and be with another person and there's going to be a new pile of shit that I'm going to have to be dealing with, not settling, but I'm going to have to choose into, right? And accept and surrender to. And so what I pinned and what I'll unpin now is this just happened recently, because what I will say is that while I've been doing the work, I'm not perfect and I'm not 100%. And I don't think we ever will be.
None of us are.
So I recently had I had a relapse. Let's just say that. I actually went through my husband, and I'm ashamed to say this because I preach not to go through your man's stuff, but I relapsed and I went through my husband's computer and it sent me into a spiral for so many reasons. But one of the reasons why it sent me spiraling was because I'm like, am I ever going to change? And I don't believe that people change. I believe their choices do. And so I had to just pick myself back up and keep choosing why I don't go through his phone, which I'll tell you guys like how I overcame that. But what I wanted to share was I had this relapse and I went ballistic. I mean, I tore up things in our house and I just saw red and I went crazy, psychotic. And this was recently. And my point of sharing this with you is that when I was talking to my energy healer, like, what is this? Why did this come back? What's happening? One of the things that she told me was like, you need to change. She goes, what if your husband never changes? She goes, what if you always go through his phone and you always find something related to another woman? Are you okay with that? Can you stay with him if he doesn't change? Because you can't change him. And I really sat with that and I chose that I'm willing to accept my husband and be with my husband, even if he weren't to change. The fact that, because here's the things that I would find. Him in his group chat from college or the NFL sending the popular page booty out Instagram models to each other and be like, here's the flavor of the day. And that would send me into a spiral. Why are you lusting over these women? Now I feel like I need a bigger butt. Now I feel like I need more boobs. And I started spiraling into like, I'm not pretty enough. I don't have big enough boobs. My body is trash because I've had babies and blah, 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 blah. And instead of just being like, something in him, and she's like, he's a Black male athlete. There's a lot of his identity wrapped in that there, which is a whole nother conversation. But when she said that, it made sense to me of like, he was raised by a culture that says it's cool to have hoes and multiple women and all these things. I don't think my husband's acting on it. I think part of his ego is wrapped up on like, do I still got it? I'm not in the league anymore. And am I willing to be with my husband while he heals and grows through that? Absolutely. And that was my choice. Not everyone's going to be willing to do that, right? But like, yeah, I just said a lot, so I kind of will stop there. But like, on that note, but that was basically because your question was like starting from the blank slate. So to kind of close that thought, what I've had to do is I've given my relationship to God. And I don't like, I'm sure everyone has different belief systems, but I gave my relationship to God in the sense that anything, whether it's a relationship, money, whatever, that you try to hold on to and control, you will lose. And so what I realized was like, here, God, if this man is the man that you have in store for my life, I'm giving it all to you. So now when I have the urge to go through his phone or to question him or to go back into my past of like, well, you did this and you did that to me, I realized that we can't change the past. All I have is the present moment and the future that I'm creating. And so I choose each moment, each day to see the potential of my husband. And as long as I keep operating like a queen, I believe my husband's going to rise up to be the king, or he's going to fall away. And so what's really saved me is focusing on me and just like reaffirming, like, cause we talked about, I mentioned the childhood thing. So my childhood autopilot, as I call it, but my childhood like picture is the man leaves, he abandons, he disrespects women.
That was your experience growing up.
That was my experience.
Okay.
And my first love, my dad wasn't there. So my reality doesn't match up. And when I learned this work, I learned that whatever your picture 0 to 8 was, if it doesn't match up as an adult, then your subconscious is constantly fighting to make your reality match your subconscious. So this is why I teach women to override the subconscious and be conscious and
the
realize
past programming.
and past programming. And so what I've been working on is I am worthy. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of a man that takes care of me, because my husband has been here. He's taking care of us. He takes care of our kids. He treats me like a queen. Like when I'm not going
through, present. He's present.
He's so present. I mean, he is literally my better half. I literally there's so many things about him that he's taught me, that he's made me better. And so when I look on that and I focus on that, it's like, not that I don't care what's happening in his phone, but I also know that he has his own demons. He has his own stuff, and I can't change that.
And you know, there's a couple things I want to say but just to add on to what you just said, when we trust our men, it makes them feel trustworthy. So then when they feel, as you know, it's like how a pattern or program works is it's thoughts create the feeling, create the action, create the result, right? So if he's feeling trusted, then he's probably going to act from that feeling of being trustworthy. Like what does a trustworthy person do, in other words, right? So we have the ability to empower and inspire our men in that way. That's why a lot of times, and you probably coach women on this, is like women can actually manifest might not be the right word, their men, or let's say push their men to cheat. Now, at the end of the day, obviously it is the man's choice and a woman can't force a man to cheat, but there's literally that it happens because we're so, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that we create. Actually, I had Laura Doyle on my show. She called it a spouse fulfilling prophecy that we can create as women, because we are that freaking powerful and influential. The other thing I want to say, and I wanted to grab from what you said earlier, was detachment. And it's so funny. I was just reading this in Jay Shetty's book. I'm reading his book right now, Think Like a Monk. And I just was reading, the whole chapter was on like practicing detachment. And so that you're really focusing inward and you're detached from the external, which obviously in this case, you know, Jason, whoever's listening now, your boyfriend, your husband, they're the external thing that you get to detach. And like you said, give to God. Right. So I just wanted to make sure that I touch back on that, because detachment is a massive, it sets you free. Like literally it actually breaks, it's like chains. If you can imagine chains, and you're actually breaking free from those chains. And because at the end of the day, the only person that you can control, the only experience that you can control is your own. You know, so it gives you your power back.
Yeah. And that was when I was having those borderline autoimmune symptoms, and I went to this doctor. It was so crazy, because he's like, basically he's like, you work out, you eat clean. At that time I was eating super duper clean. And he's like, there's no reason why your blood work should look like this. So then he literally was like, how's your relationship? And he went there, and he's like, do you trust your husband? And I'm like, well, if trust is going through his phone every day. And then he just went deep there. And my point of bringing that up was, he was telling me how he's like, you need to make a pact with yourself that you're not going to cross that bridge unless you get there. Because what you're doing in your mind is you're making up these stories of what could happen, or what if he's cheating, or what if he's doing that. And he's like, for what? Like, you're not going to, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then to your point that you just said, he basically said that he's like, and your thoughts are going to create it to happen, even if he wasn't going to do it. And I'm like, oh my God. And so that was when I really started realizing the power of our thoughts and the power of the energy. Like, energy speaks louder than anything. And so if my energy is constantly in this like protection mode, and like I've got to be one step ahead, which was really what it was underneath why I was looking through the phone. Because I felt like well, if I see it, then I'll be able to control it. But it's like, that's not even what happened. I would see it and then I would just go ballistic on him, be mad, sad, cry a river.
Yeah. It felt out of control.
I felt out of control.
It was like literally the opposite, right? You do it to feel in control, but then you actually feel out of control, right? And there's something I really want to, and after I say this, I want to ask us to go into like when to stay, when to go.
Yeah.
But I want to say really quickly, ladies listening, and I know if you follow me, you're listening to this podcast, then you know the power of visualization. And you also know that feeling is a secret. You've heard me talk about that, right? Meaning that when you sit and you meditate, you visualize the future that you want and what you want to have in your life. If you tap into the feeling as if it's happening, right? If it's as if it's actually real, then it makes it that much more powerful, your ability to manifest. Well, guess what? Just like we can manifest the things that we want and sit and manifest those desires, we can literally, energy doesn't know, the law of attraction knows not good or bad. It just happens, right? So it's like that energy is going to be read either way. It's going to go either way. So if you're sitting there, think about it, ladies, like how many times, I know all of us have been in this relationship or have been in this situation at some point where we start imagining, like you said, build the story, and he was probably doing this and that. And then all of a sudden you have this like movie in your head. You've created it literally, and you're feeling as if it's real. Like, follow me here. You're feeling as if it's real, which is why you're getting all worked up. Your anxiety's through the roof. You're feeling like your blood's pulsing, and then how do you expect that not to create a devastating result in your life? If you believe in the law of attraction, you believe in manifestation, visualization, all of those things, it can work against you as well. It can work the opposite way. So it's important to really audit and really see here, what am I choosing to believe right now? That these stories that I'm telling myself, if I'm actually putting all of this energy into them, I may actually make this this may actually happen. Right. And so it's just something to think about. And I had that coming to me so clearly when you were sharing that, because we actually do feel into those stories, and that in and of itself is powerful and works against everything we want. Okay. So Kristel, when we are in this position as women and we're deciding, do I stay or do I go? How do you coach your clients? How do you coach your women through this?
Yeah. Well, what you just said is a perfect segue to that, because at the end of the day, the way I would coach you, the way I coach myself, coach other people, is to ask a series of questions. And first and foremost, if you are in danger, like you're being physically abused or, like your life is at risk, I would caution, walk away for your safety, right? Because here's the thing, I believe that we can stay, I believe we attract our partners for healing, whether it's for a season or a lifetime. And so I do believe that you can stay with your partner through their turmoil, and you can help them heal and grow and transform through that if you're willing to stay. But when it comes to like you being in danger, that's when I would say like it might be time for you to take some space, give them their time to heal, and maybe you come back, maybe you don't, I don't know. But so aside from that, it's really asking a series of questions of what's your vision. So like what you just talked about with that visualization, this is why I tell women it's so important to know who you are, know what you want, and to get into your own alignment, because so often we're looking at like, he's not doing this and he's not doing that. So first things first, I always, like, for example, I have a 3-month program. When women come into it, I'm like, this is a 3-month hall pass for your man. And I don't mean hall pass like he can go sleep around and do whatever he wants, but I mean for at least the next 3 months, you are not to look at him for the fixing answers, like of what's happening in your relationship. It's all by you just doing the work on yourself, so many of your problems are gonna melt away, because whoever loves first wins, and whoever, like, we have to be what we want to receive. So in a relationship, whatever, like the questions you're asking is, okay, what's my vision? What is it that I want? Well, we're not having sex as much. Well, our communication, he doesn't talk to me. He doesn't open up. We don't go on dates anymore. He never buys me things. We're always arguing. I don't know, like whatever, like look at what's missing for you. What do you want and what's in the gap? And then ask yourself, how can I be those things? Because I can tell you, for example, so many times I've told my husband, well, you don't date me anymore and you don't take me out and show me off like you used to. And he's like, when was the last time you took me out and you planned a date? And then I can go into, well, it's the man's job to date and to court me, but is that really my belief system? Because it's not. I believe it's a two-way street. I believe I could just as easily plan a date. And so check your egos out the door is what I'm ultimately saying, is like, check your ego, look inward first and ask, what can I do to heal what I'm wanting from my man first? And then what I'll hear from women is like, yeah, I've already communicated all of that. I've already done all of that. And that's where it goes deeper than just a podcast conversation, because it's like, a lot of us think we're communicating, but we're not. We're, for example, let me just
or we're communicating in an unhealthy way.
So like, I'll give you an example on the date night idea. This is how I used to communicate. Why it's important for me to go on dates, and I've learned this about myself. This is why it's so important that you learn about yourself. I like being shown off. I like the feeling of getting dressed up, being all dolled up, my husband taking me out, me being his arm candy, us going somewhere and feeling like, yep, this is my man, I'm his woman. Like, I like that. I didn't realize it till I realized, okay? So when we're not going on dates, I'm missing that feeling of like, he's showing me off, he's proud of me, we're going out. So what I'm really trying to say is, hey, I just want to be shown off. I want to go out with you. I want to get dressed up with you. But I'm pinning it on the trigger of not having the date. So when I go to communicate, instead of saying, I want to go out with you, I want us to like get dolled up and show each other off, I'm like, you don't do this anymore. And I'd like just start like being the victim and pointing fingers as if it's his problem. Now, what I'm also doing at the same time is I'm not taking in consideration, well, why have we not gone on dates? Well, maybe because he's providing for 5 daughters and a wife. We are in transition. His business is in transition. During COVID, his whole building got shut down. So he had to pivot. I mean, he's got the world weight on his shoulders. And so when I come, you never take me out. I'm completely disregarding the fact that maybe he hasn't taken me on a date in a while, but what has he done? And what could I do to help and alleviate? So there's so many layers to it.
And I love that, because that's a perception shift. So it actually shifts you from being like in a complainer mode and feeling like victimized, feeling like a victim, to then actually feeling compassion and gratitude for your man, which is the most powerful. And also, I just want to say, and if anyone listening, a book that's really good is The Surrendered Wife. I don't know if you read it. You would love it, Kristel. You got to write that down. You would love it. So Laura Doyle, I interviewed her on my podcast. Those words, you never, you always, like when it's coming from, that negative point of view, is completely disempowering to a man. It does not accomplish what you are hoping it does. You are hoping as a woman that if you complain and you say you never do this or you never do that, that it'll wake them up and they'll do it. No, it's the opposite. I promise you 100 times over. And if he does do it, he's doing it from a resentful space, and it's not going to last. It's not a sustainable thing. It's really true.
Which is why I use it for the date night example perfectly, because it's like, when you're saying you never take me on a date, you're just wanting to go on a date or spend time or whatever.
Yeah, like, what do you actually want?
And by saying you never or you always, you're saying you're completely discounting what they actually do for you, and they feel like unappreciated. And so like this is a whole I talked about this in a whole episode, but I'll just name the things. Complaining, critiquing, and controlling will kill your relationship. And so that's like a perfect example of complaining. And acknowledging, appreciating, and affirming will wake it up and help it thrive. So if you can flip, like you said, the perspective of any scenario. So like I said, have your vision. What are you actually wanting? And then do some interpersonal work, like do the work on yourself to see, where am I contributing to this? And then start, to your point of like, our thoughts, our feelings, become the results. it's just like that with your relationship. So before you just throw your relationship away and walk away to another shit pile, as I said earlier, not that, like, I don't mean to make it sound like it's just all bad, but I just mean like there's going to have that side of it to every relationship. Instead of just walking away and throwing it away, do the work and be the things that you want to see, because you use the word disempower. And that's the thing, is like, I think we forget, we raise men to be masculine. Don't cry, be quiet, stop that, boys don't cry, go over there, don't be soft. Like, we raise, and I say we lightly, I don't have a son, and many of you listening may not have kids, but in general, society raises boys to not show their feelings, to be quiet, and to be in masculine energy at all times. But then when we date and live our life with this man, we want the feminine side of the man. The feminine side is the playfulness, the creativity, the sensitive, the attentive, all those things that we want. And so I beg of all of us women to allow our men to heal from generations on generations of trauma to their feminine side that has been shut off and shut down, that they don't even feel safe tapping into that energy. And God, like, thank you for the men who do and who are leading with that. And it's arising everywhere now, where men are rising up in their feminine energy as well and making it more of a thing. But it's like a lot of the things that we're missing in our relationships, that intimacy, the connection, the communication, men just want to solve problems and get on with it. They don't like to see us hurt. They don't want to see us, like, if there's a problem, they're like, okay, how can I fix this? And then we want them to like spell it out and lay out their problems and feel, we want that side, but it's shut off, like biologically almost, it's shut off because of all these generations. And so what I've found is a tool that I use in my relationship is, whenever I'm triggered by my husband and I have a problem, I take a break. So I call it a praise break. So it's P, pause, R, reflect, A, ask yourself questions, interpret, I, solve, S, and then E is experience and express. And so take a praise break whenever you get triggered in your relationship and go inward and pause, breathe, ask, why am I triggered? What's really happening right now? So I'm going to give you guys the example. When I tore up my room a few weeks ago, he liked a picture on Instagram, and it was someone that we both follow. So I saw it, but she was like dressed up in this sexy Halloween costume. And I'm in my behind the closed doors in my relationship, I'm expanding in my sexuality. I want to explore new things. I'm like, do you want me to dress up for you? And my husband is super like, no, I don't want any of that. That's for people who have broken sex lives. We don't need any. So I'm totally putting our business on the streets right now. I hope he doesn't listen to this episode. But my point of it is, I was triggered because I'm like, oh, so you'll like another female dressed up in a suit or whatever, a costume. But when I say, let me role play for you and be the waitress or something, you're like, no, we're not doing that. So the trigger had nothing to do with what I was mad about. But the way I brought it to him,
it was the meaning you attached to it.
The meaning that I attached to it. So this is what I'm saying when I say take a praise break. If I would have took my own advice and just pause and be like, what are you really mad at, Kristel?
Yeah.
Then I maybe wouldn't have ran into the room and be like, oh, so this is what we're doing now. We're like, and I just blew up. And then he was like, you're getting mad over a like? Oh, you. And then he just went in on me. Like, you're such a fraud and you're out here teaching what happened to Playbook. And he's like mocking my business. And like he just went in on me because he felt attacked, and we just attacked each other. And then I was like, oh, you think I'm mad over a like? And then I brought up all of our history, and it just came flooding back in. And it could have been saved by me just taking a break and being like, you're triggered because you made up this meaning. That meaning is not true. And okay, let me ask the questions, yada, 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 and go through the steps. And I even saw this on one of your episodes, and I loved it, where she was like, it was one of your highlights, and she's like, when you can learn all these tools, like I could tell you do a praise break, but when you see red, it all goes out the window.
Yeah, it all goes out the window. You could be like a mindset ninja. It was Alexi Panos. Yeah.
And
it's so true, because we got to breathe, the breathing. So she has a rule where she literally, her and Preston take 20 minutes and just to breathe, because the breath brings you back. And so Oh gosh, there was something that you said that I was like, I really, really wanted to hit on. Maybe it'll come back. So here's the thing. I want to say really quick, ladies, to anyone who is on, and I'm sure I feel like this is every woman, but maybe not. But like when you've gotten triggered by your man liking a photo or looking at a girl when you're out, one thing that I've really learned is that men are built as men, okay? They're visual creatures. They are. It's like, and I'm not gonna lie, when a hot woman walks in a room, I look. I'm checking her out too. Like I'm checking her out. You know what I'm saying? So one of my practices has been like really being okay with, and yes, it's hard and yes, it takes practice, but like really just yes, we're appreciating beauty. Beauty exists. Hot women exist. Like there's no fighting that. It's the reality. It's the truth of the thing. So yes, he's a man. He's visual and he's appreciating. He's not acting on it. He's not acting on it. He's just appreciating. He's liking it, you know? And it's like learning, can I be okay with that? Can I appreciate that about his manhood? And that's him as a man. And I realized that I probably would have liked that photo too, you know, that I would have checked out that woman too. So I know I'm hoping that resonates for women listening, but that's been something that I used to struggle with. And that I've come to a place, and from time to time, yeah, I still have my moments where I'm like, oh, like I'll see like Gerard check a woman out like in front of me, not on purpose. Obviously, he would never do that on purpose. And I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, you know what? And then I just remember, he's a man. He's not acting on it. I'm appreciating the beauty too. She's hot. I'll give it to her. You know, do you? Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Right.
So, well, and I know you use this saying a lot, and so do I. What you resist persists, and it's that same concept, like. I will tell you, because that's actually my whole life. Like I became obsessed with other women because I was seeing my husband and his friends like sending these women through the DMs and stuff and saying like, oh, look at her ass, or look at her boobs, or look at this and look at that. Yeah. And like to your point, the moment, and that's what I was like saying earlier when I was talking about my energy girl, when she said, can you accept this? It was the same thing. Can I surrender and accept that? Why? Of course he's looking at this. I'm looking at this. I get on the rabbit holes. I look at women. I've never gotten a rabbit hole on a guy's page on Instagram. I'm not going to say never. Maybe not never, but but pretty much never. But I stay on rabbit holes of women of like, oh my God, her skin is like butter, her hair, her butt, her boobs, her clothes. And so it's like when I surrendered and stopped resisting, like I will be damned if my husband looks at another woman, and just realize that like, yeah, he's looking, I'm looking, we're all looking, and we can go on. It actually melted, like it was creating that, it was like a thing for him too, almost like I can't do this, so I'm going to do it, versus it not even being an issue. And so it has relinquished a lot in our relationship,
a lot of pressure
because I haven't put so much emphasis on like, you know, just the looking and like, you know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, I mean, so I want to, and I want to bring it back and summarize for the listeners, because there's been so much here. And I love that you've shared like these examples, because it just really helps paint the picture even more clearly. If you're in that position, and this is kind of what I've been hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kristel, when you're in that position where you're really questioning the relationship, right? And you're like, should I stay? Should I go? You're in this kind of in between. The first thing is that we said, if your physical safety is at risk, then you got to distance yourself. You got to get away. Whether he works on himself and you come back and he's no longer physically abusive or whatever that is, then that's that. But there's that piece. Then the other thing is, so the second thing is getting clear on your vision, like getting super clear on what it is that you want. And I think the other thing that really stuck out to me is, are you willing to accept him as he is? Like, would that be enough for you, given everything else that you love about him? And that's the biggest thing, ladies, that I want you to hear. Like, are you able and willing to accept this about him, to love him through this, to inspire him to new heights while releasing attachment to that, or releasing attachment to whatever he does, and being what you wish to see in him, being what you wish to receive from him? Now, my final question for you, and if I missed anything, Kristel, feel free to add, but those were kind of like the three main points that I saw and heard you say is, if you decide, okay, I want to give this shot. I want to be in my maximum queen. Like I want to be operating from my maximum queen, being what I want to see, empowering and inspiring instead of destroying, right? How long would you say, and this is, by the way, coming from a question from an analyzer, but like how long would it take for you to commit to doing that? Like, is it like, are you committing forever? Or are you and this is a good question, right? Are you committing for,
a great question.
Like, I'm 100% forever, or I'm committing for, 1 year or 6 months? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the only other thing I would have added, which I'll tie it to what you're asking, is doing the gut check. And the gut check to me means to be honest with yourself. I had a wife friend who her husband was blatantly cheating. And to your question of how long am I going to just be like, oh, he's in the league, I'm going to give him a pass. Like, she gave him passes and she still stayed. And she got to a point where she did walk away. And I remember her telling me, she said, I don't subscribe to this ride or die chick stuff. I'm not going to die to be in a relationship. And so one way that you can do a gut check to your relationship is, are you living or are you dying in this relationship? Because one thing I do believe is a great indicator is, does that other person empower you? No relationship is perfect. No road and journey is perfect and all butterflies and rainbows. But one thing that I've never lost in my 16 years of hell that I had, and I wouldn't call it hell, but like the hellish times that we had in our relationship, I never lost the feeling of wanting to be a better person with and for my husband, and vice versa. So are you dying in the relationship? And so there's a difference between, are you dying to your flesh or are you literally dying? Because we have to die to our flesh every day. And what I mean by die to your flesh is, you have to check your ego. You have to look in the mirror and say, how am I responsible for this? Where am I creating this? Where am I expecting him to make me happy? Yada, yada. So I think a lot of us could remedy wanting to walk away from a relationship by just looking in the mirror and doing work on ourselves. But to your point, if you've done all those things, you're dying to your flesh, you are being the queen, you're taking the high road, and this man is just not willing to change and he's not willing to step up to the plate, then you've got to have the honest question or conversation with yourself. Am I dying to be in this relationship? Am I settling? And so what I have people do is write a pros and cons list, or like a why am I in this relationship and why would I want to leave it? And really get honest with yourself, because like, for example, in the pro athlete realm, I find a lot of women will stay because it's hard to walk away from $1 million checks and nice cars and nice vacations and the lifestyle. That's hard to walk away from. So many women in our world turn their head and are like, do what you gotta do.
And that's their choice.
And that's their choice.
And that's the thing, is you can't look at what she's doing or what she's doing. You've got to decide for yourself, like literally, gut check. Exactly. And I want to say that pros cons list and that why would I stay? Why would I want to leave? Actually, I want to even take that a step further of, like, here are the rewards of being in the relationship, and here's the cost, the prices I'm paying of being in this relationship. And then asking yourself, when you look at the price reward, because certain rewards are worth more than others, right? Certain costs are bigger than others. So really getting real and looking at the cost and that cost and reward analysis and saying, are the rewards worth this cost, worth this price I'm paying? That's the question that you can ask yourself. And only you know that answer. No one else can tell you that, because what you might value one thing at, maybe you value one of those list items that are really big, and then somebody else is like, oh, that's a smaller one for me. That's why no one can tell you what to do here, sister. It's up to you.
I have a client who's I feel like some days asking me, like, what do I do in her relationship? And I'm like, look, because you said something so key, that the prices and the rewards are different for everybody. Like I wouldn't like, and this is why having boundaries, knowing yourself, loving yourself, being yourself is so important in a relationship, which is why I say at least for that 3-month period, or a year, or however long it takes you. So you asked like, how long would you do it for? Your healing and evolution journey is forever. It's going to take you a lifetime to practice the art of living and becoming a better version of yourself. However, I do believe that, you know, in this case, it's like when the dust is kind of settled and you're looking at the reality of kind of what the ebbs and flows of your life is going to look like, that's where you're weighing those prices and rewards. For me, if I'm in a relationship, let's say, and this man is telling me you cannot have a business because the wife is supposed to stay home and take care of the kids and wash dishes and clean up, I'm going to be miserable in that. Miserable.
You would be dying to your flesh.
I would be, I'd be dead. Okay. So, but some women love being the homemaker, and that's all they want to do. And that's fine. So you have to know what is okay for you. And then just ask yourself, be like, I love how you put that, the prices and the rewards. Yeah.
Yeah. And regardless, just look at it as a beautiful opportunity, because you're going to get so clear with what you value and where you value it at. Like that man, whatever you end up choosing, you're going to be a better woman because of it. You're going to be a more connected woman because of it. Yeah. So either way, it's a gift.
Yeah. And I think one thing I could even end on this, but if you have any other questions, but one thing that I would say ultimately has saved me and helped me every single day is, again, like I said, giving my life to my creator. I was created for a divine purpose. And I do not believe that my divine purpose was to be my husband's wife or my children's mother. That is a part of my calling. It's a part of my journey, my path, whatever. But what I mean by that is you came into this earth alone and you're going to leave it alone. And so you have to focus on your calling. And when you put so much of your energy, I remember a pastor said, no person, position, or possession should be bigger than your calling and your alignment with your creator. And I believe that because now that I'm in alignment with my creator and I seek him first, and I'm like, I know you do this too, the morning ritual, the meditation, connecting to source. Now that I'm connected to source, I know that what's for me is always going to be available for me. And what's not in alignment with me, as long as I stay in alignment, it's not going to match up. And so that's why ultimately you just have to do the work on yourself and then be honest with yourself. Are you staying because you don't want your family to judge you that you get a divorce? Are you staying because you feel like you're not going to be a good wife or mom if you separate your kids? Are you, and then, okay, those are the reasons. Does that empower you? What are the costs you're paying by staying and doing, so
and are those things even real? Or are they imaginary? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's a question you need to ask yourself, because now you're just future pacing into a future that's not even real. Like literally it's fear, false evidence appearing real. That's fear.
Yeah.
So I love it. And that's really powerful I'm glad that you brought that point up, Kristel. So thank you. That's really important. Okay. So I do have one final question. I know we went over, actually, I was thinking about that. I'm like, I'm just going to let this episode go over and I hope that's okay with you, because I was like, we went over a little bit, but I'm like, this conversation is just too good, and I feel that everything that was said needed to be said, and that you were also, channeling, we both are. And I feel like this is just like, women need to hear this conversation. So thank you for this. And my final question to you, it's a question that I ask, it's part of the series. It's what I ask every female on fire that comes on the series. And it is, and I'm actually really curious to see what you'll say. What is one part about you personally that you used to hide or dim or mute or shun away about yourself that you have since reactivated and reignited along your transformational journey to becoming the female on fire that you are today?
Ooh, one thing that I guess it's in alignment with my authenticity. I've always thought that I was a very authentic, transparent person, but I realized that I'm very open book, but I would hide a lot of what I wanted to say because I wanted to be a people pleaser. And so like by nature, I'm just an open book. But even as open as I am, there's that like that is my natural being, but I hid a lot of that for a long time. Like I was always open, but there was still things that I would cover. And now I've committed to, if I think it, I'm going to say it, at the risk of it might offend someone. It might hurt someone's feelings. It might be shallow. I mean, even to supporting athletes wise, I fought that. I started a business 4 years ago called Wife Complex. And then I folded it, started 2 more business names after that before I came back to where I am now, because simply I was afraid that people would think, oh, she just wants to work with athletes' wives. So, because she wants to just work with a certain type of woman. Well, what about us? And like like I wanted to make sure I was including everyone. And it finally got drilled into my head over mentor after mentor after, even you say it all the time, like the riches is in the niches. Like I finally realized I'm not here to serve everybody. like my path is athlete wife. I was an athlete wife. I will always be an athlete wife. And so those are the women that I'm here to serve. That doesn't mean there's not non-wives that I don't serve, but like that was a huge part of me that I hid, you know, that
I love that.
Yeah. And so it was just that people.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy because I preach about magnetic branding. That's why my mastermind's called Magnetic Branding Mastermind. And I preach about that. And you have a magnetic brand, Kristel. That's what your brand is. It's magnetic. And that, yes, when we try to serve everyone, we're serving no one.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're saying that, because I'm still like my coach will literally message me like, you're too general, go change it again. Like my whole last sales page was so generic because I still flip into like, but you don't have to be an athlete wife, but you don't have, and it's like, just stop it already. There's so many athletes wives that need me to show up for them right now. And I need to serve them. But I struggle with it every day pretty much. But that's one thing that through doing the work, I finally realized was I cannot please everybody. And so the more authentic I am, even like when we did the interview that we first did, that was one of the breakthrough moments of being seen by you. The result, the price I paid was being vulnerable. And I'm always practicing that of, I'm not going to not say what I think because I don't want to look good or I don't want to say the wrong thing. That Black Lives Matter conversation was very scary because I knew I don't know a lot of shit and I'm Black. So people are going to judge me, but I was willing to be judged and tore down for the ones who needed to hear it. Right. And so that's been like the biggest thing, is like putting my people pleaser aside, and even going into 2021, it's my, I always pick like one mission or focus. And this year it's to just be unapologetic, because I'm constantly like trying to sugarcoat things so that everyone can feel comfortable. And I can't do that because I'm seeing the magnitude that's happening when I don't do that. So,
so good. And I love that. Shine your light, sister. You're shining bright. And I'm so excited for you. I just know this is just the beginning. And I just like, you've already created so much. And it's like, this literally is the tip of the iceberg for you. And I see that 100%. So I'm so excited to see the impact and the ripple effect that you're going to continue to make at the scale that you're going to continue to create. Like it's just awesome to see. So Kristel, I love you. Thank you so much for having this raw, real conversation, for being vulnerable, for being courageous and sharing these raw parts about your own story and your own journey and your own relationship. I know that takes courage and strength. And I know you've inspired so many women listening because of that. And you've created tons of connection to the women, for the women that are listening. They're all relating. I know that they are. They're all nodding their heads and they're feeling seen and understood because you were willing to go there. So thank you for that. And, listeners, I will put all of Kristel's things. I already know it all, so I don't got to ask you. I'll put all the links. I'll even put the link to your podcast too. So we support you with that, because I know it's already blowing up. I'm so excited for you. So I'll put that in there, your website, your Instagram, all the things. And if there's anything else I'm missing, you just let me know and I'll put it in there for you.
Yeah, I think I've just been waiting to sing "This Girl Is on Fire."
Fire! Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. I love that you said that, because you want to know, I have to tell you this. I haven't even told you guys this at all, let alone Kristel. when I got the download of Female on Fire with my business coach, I drove home, and by the way, I was driving, it was a 3-hour drive with literally that Alicia Keys song on repeat. And I have video footage of this. I literally just set down my phone. I was like, I got to record this even though I look ridiculous. I was first screaming the song at the top of my lungs, and then I just started bawling uncontrollably.
I love
like
that.
literally just like tears, like I'm talking like ugly cry, like I'm like, because it was so powerful, and I was like, yes, this is what I'm creating, this is my mission, this is my soul's calling, yes. So I love that you brought that up, because I hadn't even shared that with my listeners or with my audience yet. So thank you for giving me that like golden opportunity.
Thank you. I've been like wanting to sing it all day.
I love it. Yes,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.